3 a.m. nightmare. A mile-wide hole emerges in the desert, leaving us hauntingly confused. It was just past 3 in the morning when the air trembled, a low hum vibrating through the desert. A strange light flickered on the horizon, brighter than the stars, pulling everyone's gaze before they even knew what existed. The ground began to shake violently, and with a crack like a cannon, the earth split open, revealing a gaping maw a mile wide. It wasn't just any hole. It was as if the planet itself had been wounded. A swirl of sand and dust exploded into the night, cloaking everything in a ghostly veil. In that moment, heartbeats stuttered. Cars skidded to a halt, the tires squealing in protest against the desert's hard surface. People gathered, eyes wide, mouths agape like fish pulled from water, unable to comprehend the sheer magnitude of it all. It was the kind of sight that seared itself into memory, a visceral reminder that the world could change in an instant. A teenager in a tattered hoodie stumbled backward, clutching his chest, overwhelmed by a suffocating mix of fear and awe. "What is that thing?" he yelled, but nobody had the answer. There were whispers. Someone mentioned aliens, while another swore it had to be a government experiment gone wrong. Each suggestion hung thick in the air, and the tension wrapped around them like a vice. "Can you feel it?" a woman muttered, glancing nervously at the glowing edges of the hole. "Felt alive, breathing almost." Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the gathering crowd took a collective step closer, the strange light deep within the hole flickered again. A low, almost melodic sound emanated, sending shivers down spines. It was like nothing they'd ever heard. More people arrived, drawn by the growing spectacle, their faces illuminated in the eerie glow. Expressions ranged from sheer terror to wild fascination. Was this the start of something new? Or an omen? A warning that should have remained buried? Without warning, a shadow flitted across the surface of the hole, and gasps filled the air. Was it a trick of the light? Or was something beginning to emerge? Hope and dread battled in everyone's chest as the crowd leaned in, tense and breathless. What was down there? What would it mean for them? A haunting chill wrapped around them, leaving a knot of worry in the pit of their stomachs. Only one thing was clear. Curiosity and fear would pull them deeper into the mystery. What lay below was waiting, and whatever it wasn't done with them yet. The air quaked again, a tremor that rippled through the gathered crowd like the shockwave of a detonation. Gasps intertwined with whispers of fright. Some rushed backward, their instincts screaming to get away. Others edged closer, inching forward as if hooked by an unseen force. The strange light pulsated, winking like a distant star come to life in this barren wilderness. Then, a piercing shriek cut through the night, rising above the murmurs. It came from the teenager, now on his knees, pointing at the hole. "Look, something's coming. I swear something's." His words choked as the crowd shifted. A collective breath held. They strained to see, eyes darting toward the abyss, expecting the worst but hoping for a miracle. Suddenly, the shadows at the bottom of the hole coalesced into a figure. It was malformed and shifting, twisting like smoke but distinctly humanoid. It lurked, edging closer to the surface. The glow intensified, casting elongated silhouettes on the faces of those nearby. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, building urgency, dread, and something bizarrely thrilling. "Get back!" a man shouted, but others were frozen, entranced by the unfolding horror. Something about the glow felt magnetic, drawing them in. The air thickened with tension, a strange static that made the hair on their arms stand on end as it emerged. The creature's form began to solidify, revealing features that were disturbingly familiar. A face human but distorted, eyes wide, terrified, like someone who had witnessed the unimaginable. A woman gasped, That's my sister." The crowd recoiled, gasping and reaching for each other as they struggled to process this twist of fate. Had they just witnessed a miracle? Or an abomination? What's happening? A man whispered, his voice faltering. Panic spread like wildfire. "This can't be real," someone else chanted, shaking their head as if to deny the evidence right before them. Just then, as if responding to their disbelief, the figure stepped fully into the light, revealing more layers of swirling energy and texture that defied explanation. The sound that had been so melodic twisted into something else entirely. High-pitched, a cacophony of voices layered atop one another, like a chorus of souls crying out in unison. Then, silence, an all-consuming hush fell over the crowd. It was a silence so profound that it drowned out even the pulse of the earth beneath their feet. The figure stood still, like a statue made of shadows, staring at them with eyes that seemed to hold worlds within. Are you alive?" Someone finally croaked, breaking the spell. The creature shifted slightly, then raised a hand. A gesture? A plea? An invitation? Gasps filled the air as everyone edged closer, curiosity battling with instinct. And there it came again, that intoxicating pull. The fear morphed into wonder. What if this was a bridge to something greater, something beyond mere existence? "Everybody, back away!" A voice cut through, a local sheriff pushing through the crowd, his face pale, wide eyes scanning the scene. "We don't know what we're dealing with." But the crowd had made its decision. They remained transfixed. The creature's lips moved, forming words that didn't make a sound, but the meaning rippled through the air like a whisper in their minds. The scene vibrated with tension, and then the ground shook violently once more. "What does it want?" Another voice whispered, incredulity blending with trepidation. Just as the earth quaked, the figure began to dissolve into a beam of radiant light. Then nothing. Darkness swallowed the night once again. The crowd stood, dazed and confused, grappling with the impossible and the stillness that followed. One thought haunted everyone. This was only the beginning. What awaited them beneath that mile-wide chasm? And as silence enveloped the scene, doubts surged within. Would they uncover a truth that would forever change their lives? Or would they unleash something better left in the shadows? The darkness pressed in, heavy and suffocating. Faces turned pale as reality hit hard. The flickering glow had vanished, yet an unsettling hum echoed in their minds, an aftershock of that strange presence. Whispers darted around like frightened birds, seeking safety in each other's stories. "What just happened?" someone asked, their voice a fragile thread amidst the tension. The local sheriff stood frozen, clearly at a loss, his hands twitching nervously at his sides. "Did you see its face?" Another person breathed, eyes wide, still dazed by the vision of the figure. "It wasn't just a creature, it was someone. Someone we know." Chills ran through the crowd, and a murmur of unease spread like wildfire. Did that mean others were down there, trapped or emerging? The possibility of loved ones being in some shadowed limbo tormented them, intertwining hope with dread. "Listen," the sheriff finally shouted, voice rising above the panic. "We need to move back. We have to secure the area. Call in the authorities." His command faltered, as an earth-shaking rumble surged beneath their feet, and the air crackled with fate hanging in the balance. People stumbled back, and children cried out in fright. The whole seemed alive, pulsating like a malignant heart. A few brave souls inhaled deeply, stepping forward, drawn by the gravity of what lay beneath that yawning chasm and oblivious to the peril of their curiosity. "Wait, don't go near it." Panic colored the sheriff's voice, but still, they crept forward, as if enchanted by the ghostly echo of the figure. "I have to see. If there's a chance," a woman cried, eyes glistening with unvoiced hope. They all felt it, deep in their bones. A desperate need to know what fate awaited at the bottom. "Don't you understand? You don't know what you're dealing with," shouted the sheriff, feeling the weight of control slipping away. But it was too late. The earth beneath their feet heaved again, and the crowd gasped simultaneously. A blinding shaft of light shot from the hole, bathing the night in stark brilliance. Gasps turned to screams as shadows flitted through the radiant column, hinting at forms twisting in obscured madness. "Run!" Someone screamed, but the command fell on deaf ears. An invisible tether anchored them in place, hearts hammering like drums of war as they squinted into the brilliance. What as a voice quivered, but it got swallowed by another wave of tumultuous energy, shaking their core, rattling their thoughts. The certainty of reality blurred as a new figure emerged from the light, impossibly tall, radiant, and garbed in that ethereal shimmer. Eyes wide as saucers, they slowly recognized it bore no resemblance to the failed reflection of humanity they had seen before. This was something entirely different, something beyond comprehension. "No, no," someone cried, a hand on their chest. "This can't be happening." With a swift motion, the figure pointed into the darkness of the hole, and an answering roar bubbled up from its depths, a guttural sound that felt like a warning. And in that moment, a tether of unearthly understanding surged through the crowd, igniting their urgency to flee, yet a tenacious few couldn't tear their gaze away. What stood before them offered answers. What lay beneath offered nightmares. "Are we ready to face what's coming?" The sheriff's voice broke, a whisper now in the maelstrom. As the shimmering figure gestured again, the earth shook once more, surging with a violent energy that felt like a promise of something terrible and extraordinary. All eyes turned to the gaping maw of the hole, the echo of the unknown calling sharply into their minds. But as the figure's voice rang out in a haunting chant that filled the air with promises of revelation, one thought echoed louder than the rest. What if the truth they sought turned out to be worse than their darkest fears? The tension hung heavily, a prelude to the storm approaching. What lay beneath life or death, salvation or damnation? Only the next moment would tell. The light flickered, illuminating a vast expanse of chaotic shadows within the hole. The crowd stood paralyzed, breaths shallow and uneasy. For a moment, every heartbeat synchronized, a frantic drumroll before the storm broke. When the figure stunning, radiant spoke again, the words echoed through the air, slicing through their fear like a limb set free from a painful bond. "Seek the truth within, but no, not all is as it seems." That voice swirled around them, wrapping them tight, and snaring their senses. The sheriff's heart raced, a wild rhythm against the backdrop of confusion. He felt an instinctive urge to protect the townsfolk, yet the terror paralyzing him was palpable, drawing closer with each word. He tried to sound authoritative, his hands raising to command silence. "Everyone step back. We have to take precautions." But the murmurings had escalated into loud, chaotic whispers, swirling with speculation and mounting dread. "Is it really one of us? Is it alive?" A man's voice quivered, betraying his horror. In the tension thickening the air, the braver members of the group edged closer, peering over each other's shoulders, fueled by morbid curiosity, their faces illuminated with a frantic mixture of fear and yearning. What truth was worth this risk? Did they want to delve into madness or hope? Then it happened. A deafening roar erupted from the chasm, a sound that reverberated through bone and marrow. The sheriff staggered back, instinctively raising his arms as if to shield himself from a blow. The earth trembled beneath him, as if responding to the creature's call. Among the crowd, someone screamed, "What is it? Don't look at it. Don't engage." The sheriff shouted, desperation lacing his voice. But it felt as if the crowd had become a singular entity, drawn by an unseen magnetism to what lay hidden. The radiant figure shifted, drawing power from the abyss, suddenly fierce and ominous. Shadows danced along its elongated limbs, and the air grew thick with an electric tension, as if the atmosphere was about to rupture from the weight of their collective fear. "Come forth. Learn what binds you," it commanded, voice resonating like a haunting symphony. As if hearing an unspoken call, the ground splintered, releasing clouds of dust and smoke that spiraled upward, curling around their feet. Faces turned towards the opening, disbelief transforming into morbid fascination. Seconds turned into an eternity, as each heartbeat echoed like thunder in their ears. Then, A chilling realization washed over the crowd like cold water. What if that which emerged from the depths wasn't what they feared, but rather the very thing holding them prisoner in their own ignorance? Panic surged with renewed urgency. Families grabbed tight to one another, the bond of safety threatened yet stronger in the face of an unknown terror. "We need to leave," shouted a woman, her voice cutting through the haze of awe. But another voice rang out, one trembling with an emotion that echoed their internal struggle. "What if this is the only way we find out what happened? What if our loved ones are down there?" As the ground heaved again, it became clear. They were on the edge of a precipice, both literally and metaphorically. The light flickered once more, and shadows slithered at the fringes of their view, coaxing them closer to the brink of revelation, promising answers yet threatening chaos. Fate was a cruel master, and now it beckoned to them from deep within the maw of darkness. "Prepare yourselves," whispered the radiant figure, a foreboding tone cloaked in ethereal beauty. "For what emerges does not just seek you, it seeks the very fabric of your truths." In this moment of escalating horror, a dreadful thought twisted through the sheriff's mind, heavy and suffocating. Could they truly handle the truth of what lay beneath, or was ignorance a greater curse? As the chaos enveloped them, the air thick with anticipation and dread, one question pounded in their hearts: what would they sacrifice to uncover the truth? And then, from the darkness, a figure started to emerge. It was larger, closer, and impossibly familiar. The figure surged forth from the gaping maw, obscured by swirling dust, and then there it was. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Faces transformed as recognition washed over them like ice water. It was a man they thought they had lost long ago, a father, a brother, someone they had buried in their minds along with their memories. The sheriff's heart plummeted. This wasn't just a revelation. It was a nightmare resurrected. He took a step forward, instinctively wanting to reach out, but the air crackled with danger. The figure stood tall, drenched in shadows. Yet there was an unmistakable light illuminating his features, an unsettling mix of familiarity and strangeness. The radiant figure had spoken of truths, but this felt like an intrusion, a glitch in the fabric of their reality. "Tom," a woman whispered, her voice breaking the suffocating silence. Tom's eyes, once vibrant, now looked like dark pools, reflecting not only the terror around him but a deeper void. "Help me," he croaked, the words barely leaving his lips, but hauntingly clear. The crowd shifted anxiously, a wave of fear crashing through their ranks as more figures began to emerge, twisting in the swirling shadows. Yet no one dared to step closer. The promise of answers loomed heavier than the threat, and unease settled like fog. "What have you done?" The sheriff's voice trembled, shaking off the spell of horror. "Where have you been?" Tom, lips trembling, gestured back into the dark. "They need you. You have to come." A rumble of discontent rolled through the group. People jostled, glances exchanging fears behind whispered concerns. The sheriff felt sweat trickle down his back. Tension wove a tight net, ensnaring everyone deeper in the decision ahead. Should they leave the safety of the familiar, or dare to delve and face the truths buried beneath the surface? Are they real? Someone questioned, the worry etched in their face. Tom stepped forward again, but this time it was the radiant figure who interrupted, its voice slicing through the crowd's doubts. "A choice must be made. Do you embrace your truths, or do you cling to the shadows of your fear?" The air changed, a crushing weight that ignited long-buried emotions rose amongst them. Siblings eyed each other, fists clenched. A little girl clutched her mother's hand like a lifeline, wide eyes glistening with innocence amidst the chaos. "Tom," the sheriff yelled, heart thundering. "If you're real, tell us what happened. Where are the others? What's down there?" A flicker of hesitation crossed Tom's features. "You won't understand," he murmured, shaking his head. A tremor punctuated his tone, like a fragile thing about to shatter. From the depths, a glow began to emerge, expanding out as though the shadows were alive. The unsettling forms whispered sweetly, a siren song promising understanding, but stinging with danger. "Step into the light, Sheriff. You have suffered your whole life. Choose liberation over fear." The temptation hung thick in the air, mingling with despair as uncertainty clawed at their hearts. The sheriff felt his pulse quicken. If he stepped forward, he risked losing more than he could ever recover. Then the ground beneath them shuddered violently, shaking tangible terror through the crowd. The figures began to cluster, their presence cascading like fallen leaves, bringing forth their secrets both frightening and enticing. "Do you dare face what you have buried?" The radiant figure beckoned again, its form shimmering like a fever dream, swirling within the chaos of the unknown. And in that moment, the sheriff knew he could either remain tied to their past pain or risk diving headfirst into the abyss for the sake of truth. The truth. What would it reveal? As the shadows closed in, and the figures seemed to reach for him with desperate pleas, a single thought echoed through his mind: what if this path led to obliteration? The ground trembled once more, and a dreadful silence fell. Would he take the leap into the unknown, or succumb to the chains of ignorance? In the midst of the chaos and trepidation, one piercing scream burst forth, as a new figure began to rise, unfamiliar, but unmistakably, undeniably connected to them all. What secret did it hold, and would it fracture them forever? As the piercing scream echoed and rippled through the crowd, the air thickened with a new kind of dread. The sheriff's heart raced. He strained his eyes, desperately trying to grasp the outline of the new figure pushing through the darkness. This one felt different, laced with an uncanny energy, and every instinct in his body screamed to flee. "What is this?" someone gasped, eyes darting around, caught in the crossfire of fear and fascination. A chill crept in, wrapping around everyone like a wet blanket. They had come face to face with the past. Now, they were being confronted with the unknown. Silence blanketed the scene, broken only by the rustling of the wind and the distant howl of despair. The sheriff stepped back, his boots crunching on the broken earth beneath him. Just behind Tom, the new figure came into focus. A woman, her features unmistakably familiar. She looked just like his sister, lost in the chaos that had consumed their family years ago. "Lila?" he barely whispered, the name escaping like smoke. "No." Thomas' warning tore the air, snapping the moment like a brittle twig. "Don't she's not what you think." The accusation echoed, but it only deepened the confusion. Lila's eyes seemed to glisten with sorrow, an echo of bygone days. "Please," she implored, her voice wavering like a candleless flame. "I'm here to help. It's worse than you can imagine." As the sheriff's mind raced, a cacophony of horror washed over him. Could any of this be real? Memories twisted in his gut, fueled by denial and pain. Voices filled with disbelief erupted among the crowd, concerns spilling over like a broken dam. "Is it a trap?" someone shouted, a mixture of anger and fear driving the question. "What kind of sick game is this?" "She's clearly a ghost," came another response, riddled with skepticism. "This is madness." But the sheriff shook his head, unable to turn away from the visage of his sister. "Lila, what happened to you? Why can't you come home?" The swirling figures seemed to lean closer, as if waiting with bated breath for a revelation. Lila's features twisted in anguish, and in that heartbeat, the shadows pulsated around her, shifting like a living creature. "I tried to protect you," the words tumbled out, heavy and laden with despair. "But it's buried deeper than we thought, so many layers." The sheriff edged forward, curiosity and fear grappling for dominance in his chest. "What are you talking about?" The dark shadows began to pulse in rhythm with Lila's frantic heartbeats, drawing the crowd closer. "What happened down there, Sheriff? Don't you want to know?" The audience shifted, eyes darting back to Tom, who stood as taut as a wire, his breath quickening. "You're playing with fire. You can't trust them. The more you dig, the more it'll consume you." The ground shuddered again, this time more violently, sending tremors surging into their core. The radiant figure faded slightly, light dimming as though the urgency of its message waned in the face of this new chaos. "Choose," it roared, powerful, compelling. "Do you cling to your past or embrace the unknown?" The sheriff's mind whirred. Lila, standing there with guilt-ridden eyes, represented everything he had lost, everything he dreamt of recovering. Yet, Thomas' warning hung heavier than the air, a bitter taste on his tongue. Time is ripping at the seams. The radiant figure's voice grew deeper, resonating through the ground, shaking their resolve. You must decide now. Before he could act, before he could even think. Lila's eyes flared, suddenly glistening with a fierce fire. You have to trust me. We can fix this. But we need to go. You have to be willing to face what you fear most. The crowd was restless, panic wrapping around hearts, tightening like a noose. Every breath felt pregnant with possibility, yet heavy with dread that I end that moment. As shadows seemed to weave into a thicker web, ominous and alluring, the sheriff's heart caught in his throat. What did she really mean? What lay deeper in the abyss? The darkness loomed closer, ensnaring the edges of their reality. They stood on the brink, precariously, close to that hidden truth, one that had the power to obliterate everything they knew. Will you follow? Lila pressed, urgency blending with desperation. And just as the question pierced the chilling air, another voice erupted, a scream that sent an electric shiver down the sheriff's spine. What truly lurked beneath the surface? Would they dare to unearth the horror that awaited? Or would they fall victim to the shadows that beckoned them closer? The scream shattered the heavy silence like glass, sending shockwaves through the crowd. The sheriff's heart thundered, drowning out the frantic whispers swirling around him. He turned toward the source, his eyes narrowing in the thickening darkness. Was it another illusion? Another trick played by the darkness? Stay back, Tom shouted, his voice breaking through the murmur of fear like a knife. His face was frozen, the color drained, eyes darting to the shadows as if a monster might leap from them at any moment. You don't know what you're dealing with. The sheriff clenched his jaw, torn between the impulse to protect Tom and his burning desire to reach Lila, to unravel the truth. But she's my sister, he insisted, his voice trembling with vulnerability. I can't just leave her here. Tom's sharp intake of breath cut through the air. This isn't Lila. She's been twisted, don't you see? It might be something else entirely. As their argument reached a crescendo, Lila stepped forward, the shadows swirling around her like a cloak. You have to believe me, she cried, desperation curling her mouth into a thin line. Things aren't right. They're coming for you, Sheriff. Her voice faltered, eyes flickering as if she were gazing through a veil to another world. What's coming? The question tumbled out of the sheriff's lips, sincerity cracking through his fear. Things that should never have returned, she said in a whisper. The psychic weight of her words hung heavy in the air, almost tangible, radiating dread. I couldn't protect you then. But now it's our chance. With a sudden surge of courage, she reached out, fingers glinting as they caught the last slivers of moonlight. The crowd held its breath, a sea of bodies frozen in fear, their lives tethered to this moment. Before the sheriff could move, dark figures slithered from the edges of the light, swirling and transforming from mere shadows into fluid shapes, each one bearing a distinct agony etched into their faces. Gasps erupted, and someone shouted, "Look out!" The shadows writhed as if alive, each contorting into horrific forms, each reminiscent of lost souls imprisoned by grief. Panic ignited like a match in a powder keg, and the crowd surged backward, shoving one another in a desperate bid for safety. No, stay, the sheriff commanded, his voice cracking as he fought against the tide of fear. We need to hold our ground. Lila is right. We can't let them win. But the tide had turned. The shadows lunged forward, closing in on those who remained. And just as he felt himself pulled into the vortex of chaos, Lila shouted, "The truth lies in the depths, down below where they cannot follow. You must trust me, Sheriff. We must go deeper." A surge of hope crashed through his veins, and in that moment, something shifted within him. He grasped Lila's outstretched hand, feeling a spark ignite between them, a tether of love stronger than any fear that loomed. "Let us go," he shouted over the din, and with one swift motion, he turned toward the ground beneath them, where a gaping hole began to form, a void almost hypnotic in its depth. Shadows coiled around the edges, hissing and howling, desperate to consume them as they plunged into the darkness. The air filled with echoes of agonized cries, a cacophony of spirits begging for release. Can you feel it? Lila said, her voice echoing like a distant light. The truth is near. We must confront it before it consumes us. Dread gripped the sheriff's chest as the hole swallowed them whole. Would he discover the truth he sought, or would they awaken something long suppressed? In that suffocating darkness, he felt a strange pull, an undeniable force that promised revelations and horrors entwined. What awaited them below? Would unveiling the truth save them, or trap them in a nightmare of their own making? As the void enveloped them, he braced himself for the unknown, and in those final moments, darkness closed in around them like a silent predator preparing to feast. The fall felt endless, their bodies weightless as they plummeted through the dark abyss. Fear coiled in the sheriff's stomach, a tight knot that twisted tighter with each passing second. The echoes of distant cries surrounded them, an unsettling choir resonating with sorrow. Lila's grip on his hand was steady, her fingers cool against his clammy skin, anchoring him in the chaos. Stay close, she urged, her voice rising above the cacophony, the urgency palpable. Suddenly, their descent tapered off, and they were met with a ground that felt jagged and unwelcoming. The air shifted. It was heavier down here, dense with an otherworldly pressure. Around them, the dim light flickered like dying stars, and shadows danced in patterns that hid ancient secrets. Where are we? The sheriff murmured, his voice barely breaking the thick silence that closed in on them. This is the heart of it, Lila replied, scanning their surroundings with wide eyes. The place where the sorrow seeps through, where the pain is stored. We need to find it, Sheriff. We need a way to battle it. Before he could respond, a low rumble pulsed through the air, vibrating in his bones. The ground shifted beneath their feet, an ominous sound, like a threat made manifest. The shadows morphed, stretching and contracting as if reacting to an unseen force. Quick! Lila grabbed his arm, and together they sprinted towards a faint light flickering in the distance. It bathed their faces in an eerie glow, illuminating faces twisted in anguish, eyes hollow and searching. What are they? He gasped, horrified by the figures that emerged from the gloom. Each silhouette told a story of pain, remnants of lives lived and lost. Echoes of mournful wails wrapped around him, squeezing his chest tight. They are lost, she said, her voice a whisper against the rising tide of despair. They've been trapped here just like us. We need to look deeper. As they neared the light, it sparked painfully bright, revealing an altar-like formation ahead. The shadows jerked and thrashed, as if in protest. Lila stepped closer, her breath escaping in short gasps. I can feel it. The truth is here. The sheriff hesitated, fear gripping him like a vice. What truth awaited them? Was it worth the risk? Just then, he spotted something glimmering within the light, a small, ornate box that vibrated with a pulsating energy. Is that it? He asked, pointing. Yes, that's the key, Lila said, her eyes gleaming with urgency. She reached for it, but as her fingers grazed the surface, a screech ripped through the air, a horrific sound that seemed to shake the very foundation of their surroundings. The shadows surged, twisting angrily, pulling them back. No, we have to get it, Lila shouted, desperation etched into her features in a frantic bid. The sheriff stumbled forward. He grabbed her and pulled her back just in time, as the shadows lunged, tearing through the air where they had been moments before. The hollow faces mirrored his fear, their mouths opening in silent screams. What are they? He cried, his heart pounding. They are the echoes of those who lost their way, Lila breathed, the realization settling upon them. And we can't let them take us too. We must break the cycle. The shadows grew thicker, swirling ominously. They were closing in. Desperation clawed at the sheriff's throat. We have to fight back. But how? How could they battle what was long ago buried in grief and darkness? As the void around them deepened, the sheriff realized they were at a precipice, a point of no return. The terrified whispers coiled tighter around them. Would they ever escape the grasp of this despairing realm? What would releasing the truth unleash upon them? And as the darkness whispers beckoned under a growing storm of shadows swirling around, The sheriff clutched Lila's hand tighter, ready to face whatever fate awaited them. Suddenly from the depths, something moved, silent and powerful. A figure began to take form, looming larger than all the others before it. The air thickened with dread. The moment had come. Just who or what was this new entity? What dark secret lay hidden in the Judge of Souls? The figure stepped forward, emanating an unsettling calm that cut through the chaos like a knife. It towered over them, a patchwork of darkness and texture, an entity forged from history's deepest wounds. Its eyes, void and endless, seemed to hold the weight of the lost souls surrounding them. Who dares to uncover the truth? The voice echoed through the chamber, layered with anger and sorrow. Each word felt like ice settling into the sheriff's bones, freezing his breath and slowing his pulse. We're searching for a way to end this, Lila called, her voice steadying as she faced the impending dread. We can't let these souls suffer any longer. And what? It snorted, the shadows swirling at its feet, as if listening intently for the answer. You know nothing of this place, of the grief that binds them to this realm. The sheriff felt the shadows press against him, hot and suffocating, like crushed velvet reaching out to ensnare him. His heart pounded violently in his chest. We didn't come here to hurt anyone, he shouted back, his anger peaked. Just tell us what we need to do. In response, the figure's hollow laughter echoed, sending shivers down both their spines. You wish to sever the bond of pain with mere words? Sorrow is a darkness that must be confronted, not ignored. Before he could grasp the full weight of the words, a cacophony erupted around them. The faces surged closer, their hollow eyes pleading yet threatening, angry screams transforming into guttural roars that filled the chamber like thunder. No, Lila screamed, trying to shield them both. We are here to help. Selfless, yet blind, the figure sighed, shaking its colossal head. But for each moment of grief you hope to absolve, an exchange must be made. What is dear to you will be a cost. What are you talking about? The sheriff's voice broke, confusion clawing at his mind as he struggled to comprehend the sheer weight of the choice laid before them. An exchange. For those damned to this fate, it intoned, as shadows continued to churn ominously. You must sacrifice the one thing you hold closest to your hearts. Only then can you release them from torment. Panic surged through him. What did that mean? He looked at Lila, eyes wide with terror. She met his gaze with a shared horror. Her fingers tightened around his, and for a moment, they stood in unity, gripped by an unshakable bond. Sheriff? Think. She gasped, desperation mixed with malevolence in the air. If we give up something, we could save them. And ourselves. But can we? Just then, the shadows morphed, swirling faster around the entity like a cyclone, filling the air with a stench of memory and time. Faces twisted in pain swirled around them, eyes burning with longing for escape. I can't, the sheriff's voice faltered, a lump forming in his throat. What if we don't want to pay that price? What if letting go means we lose ourselves? The figure loomed ever closer, its form melding with the encroaching darkness, eyes fixed on them with hunger. Then you shall all remain, trapped among the echoes forever. The ultimatum hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The space vibrated with tension, their decision loomed like a guillotine, ready to drop at the slightest inclination. In that moment, every whisper of self-preservation and sacrifice twisted through his mind like metal on metal. Could they confront the darkness not only outside but within themselves? The cost of truth bore down upon them, and the sheriff's heart raced, lost and uncertain. What lay on the other side of this decision? And as the sirens of despair wailed and the shadows clawed at their backs, the sheriff knew they had to decide, what would they sacrifice for the chance to escape? What could ever justify the cost of such a grim decision? Just then, the chilling realization struck him. What if we lose each other? And standing on that precipice, the weight of that thought loomed larger than any darkness they had ever encountered. The darkness pressed in, a heavy blanket obscuring the way forward. The sheriff struggled with dread, heart racing against the weight of the decision laid before him. They stood at the edge of all they feared, Sacrifice stood like a ghost in the doorway of their lives. He glanced at Lila, her face a mix of hope and despair as shadows writhed around them, hungry for their souls. Sheriff, she breathed, desperation piercing her calm. This is our chance. If we don't act, we fail everyone. We have to be willing to try. The figure shifted closer, shadows swirling around it like storm clouds. Its eyes, void and endless, pulsed, almost eager for the decision. The echoed cries of suffering souls echoed through the air, a testament to both their own fears and the torment that bound those lost to the shadows. What do we value the most, Sheriff? Lila pressed. What would you sacrifice? Would it be your badge, your position, or even me? Each word felt like daggers, sharp and real, twisting in his chest. I can't, he swallowed, throat tight, the notion of losing her carving deeper. Memories surged forth. Laughter, warmth, days gone by. Could he trade her for the chance to unearth peace for others? The echoes whispered louder, their pleas filling his ears. As if sensing his hesitation, the figure leaned down, a menacing flame igniting in its void-like eyes. Choose. The price must be paid for the freedom of the damned. One must go. No, Lila shouted, steeling herself. We don't know what this means. We have to find another way. But increasingly frantic shadows thrashed around them, beckoning with promises dense as night. Panic surged. Lila, his voice broke, firm yet understanding. You've lost so much. I can't risk you. I stop. She held him steady, her fingers tight against his trembling hand. We won't let fear dictate our choice. We stand together in this. We either face this horror or become part of it. Around them, the cries morphed into anguished roars, the shadows weaving tighter. Faces of the lost flared like distant stars, begging for liberation. Make your choice, the figure intoned, a cruel impatience threading its voice. Sacrifice or be consumed. Sheriff, her grip tightened painfully. If we don't break this cycle of pain, then it truly will be forever. I'd rather lose myself, drown in the dark than forsake the innocent. Just trust me. An inner power ignited within her. The energy sparked in the air, electric and furious. The sheriff felt his resolve strengthen. But I can't lose you, Lila. I've already lost so much. His voice smoldered with emotion. Suddenly, he saw her clearly, the light in her eyes, the courage radiating from her heart. It's either me or the dark. Stand with me. Please. The truth needs to be faced. And in that moment he understood. The bond they shared, their love, was greater than any fear, any sacrifice. The truth demanded courage, to stand against the very fabric of what had once chained them in sorrow. Awake! He roared to the shadows, to the figure. I will not lose another. I will not let despair consume us. We choose to face this together. Lila's eyes shone, the moment lighting an unbroken path between their spirits. They both stepped forward into the center amidst shadows and echoes, a flickering heart in the obsidian storm, a fierce rejection of surrender as their joined hands glowed. The shadowy figure recoiled, shattering the tension like glass under pressure. The air exploded with warmth, an embrace of hopeful light against the dark. Face your truth together. The figure bellowed, anger brewing as shadows danced erratically. The glowing box hung suspended, resonating wildly. In that heartbeat, the shadows merged and began to unravel within the radiant warmth spilling from Lila and the sheriff, weaving threads of lost souls into a single tapestry. The cacophony of voices turned from angry roars to cathartic cries, shifting into whispers of peace. Relief rippled through the chamber, scattering pain underfoot as light enveloped the darkness. Driven by the choice to sacrifice one's fear for the sake of love. Then, the darkness trembled, fracturing like ice in spring. You defy the eternal. The figure snarled as it began to dissolve, retreating into the very shadows that festered around them. Together Lila murmured, every heartbeat echoing the resolve they carved in that moment. Together, he reaffirmed, their light expanding and pushing back the agony of the past. As the echoes of lost souls morphed into ribbons of color, the chamber lit up, becoming a cathedral of luminous possibilities. The light consumed them, the shadows disintegrating, unraveling into memories freed at last. A warmth enveloped them. The sheriff took a deep breath, that familiar weight lifting. Then, an astonishing feeling of vast, imbued serenity settled over him. Emerging from the remnants of darkness, they found themselves lying on the desert floor, dawn creeping across the horizon. The light of day broke, painting the skies with golden hues of promise something had changed forever. The crowd was gathered, eyes wide and filled with awe, standing together as one. They were alive, and they felt the pulse of hope in the air, a collective sigh of relief echoing through the morning light. Lila and the sheriff exchanged a glance, understanding the weight of what they had faced and the beauty of their choice. They stood taller now, hands intertwined, hearts beating steadily. As the sun broke fully over the horizon, the sheriff turned to the townsfolk. "We choose love, we choose to face the truth. Let us be the guardians of that choice." Cheers erupted, filling the expanse like sweet music, and the sheriff's heart soared. Today marked the dawn of healing, a promise of hope tethered to every soul that had wandered lost in the darkness. In that moment, something eternal surged through them, all the belief that no darkness could consume a heart filled with light, and together, they uncover tomorrow. But just as laughter rippled through the crowd's excitement, a lingering echo whispered on the wind, a subtle reminder that embracing truth always birthed new journeys. And with that, they knew the adventure wasn't over. This was only the beginning. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Don't wait even one more second. And smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Did you see it coming? What do you think lies ahead? Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference. Let us grow this amazing community together.